Hey, what's up guys? Luso here, Team D Plus Gaming. I'm here to give you a look at the new ban list. This was just updated a few minutes ago, and like I said, this was going to be from January 1st through March 31st. So we have approximately 3 months under this format, and I definitely think it's shaping out to be a slower paced format because they definitely murdered elemental dragons with this list. And as you can see, or as you will see here in a few minutes, that um, the rest of the decks will definitely have a chance to kind of catch up. Um, and so I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up here for you guys. So first up, cards that are no longer on the list: Fire Formation Tenki, Constellar Ptolemy M7, Tour Guide, TG Striker, Plague Spreader Mizuki, and Archlord Christia. Okay, so Archlord Christia for agents, they need the help. Agents really haven't done anything this past format. I mean, again, a lot of decks really hadn't because of elemental dragons being around still. But I mean, even in general, I think Chaos Agents is slowly getting outdated. And so giving Christia back to 3 really won't affect them. Next up, said Mizuki and Plague Spreader back to 3. I think Plague Spreader is kind of the bigger deal because that's more widely used. I mean, because this is used for most Chaos decks in general. But I mean, Mizuki and Plague Spreader back to 3. Like I said, I don't really think zombies will come out of nowhere this format with that. I mean, vampires is a good archetype, but I don't think they'll utilize 3 Plague Spreader. They might utilize 3 Mizuki. Um, and I think that'll probably help the deck out. But at the same time, I mean, I don't foresee zombies being tier 1 because of this. TG Striker, again, TGs haven't done anything, and TG Agents really haven't done anything. So TG Striker at 3 is definitely not going to hurt the format. Next up, Tour Guide from the Underworld. So we were talking about this earlier, and I don't foresee Tour Guide being at 3 really breaking anything. Rank 3s aren't that scary anymore. There are ways to get around them. And I think the only deck that might utilize 3 Tour Guide would be Dark World still. And even then, it's kind of iffy because you do have 3 additional targets for Tour Guides, but at the same time, you're running with a fairly low monster count, and like it doesn't really add to the main strategy of helping you to go off faster. So I will definitely toy around with 3 Tour Guides, but I'm not sure how that'll work out. Constellar Ptolemy M7 back to 3. I don't really see the harm in that one. And then Fire Formation Tenki. That helps out Fire Fist, which is good because Fire Fist did need the support. Like they definitely needed it. 4-axis was almost dead last format, and 3-axis is still dead this format. But with 3 Tenki again, I think 4-axis will be a viable deck that could do really well. Next up, cards that are now semi-limited. First of all, Chaos Sorcerer and Lonefire Blossom. So Chaos Sorcerer helps out Chaos-based decks in general. It's like a mini VLS that helps you banish things. And then Lonefire Blossom. This will help out plant decks a lot, especially with the Shinra archetype, which I know has been renamed. But that is the name that keeps sticking with me, so it's what I'm going to continue to use. But with that archetype coming out, Lonefire Blossom at 2 will definitely help them out. Next, moving up the list, we have Spellbook of Fate on the limited list, 7-Star Sword on the limited list, Final Countdown, and Divine Wind of Mist Valley in the spell section. I will move up to the monsters here in a second. But Spellbook of Fate is definitely going to hamper spellbooks being limited, because spellbooks now being budget, they needed to hit something in this deck, because otherwise this is going to be kind of the go-to for the format, I'm pretty sure. And even still, I foresee a lot of people picking up spellbooks. Again, with High Priestess and Spellbook with the Master both being reprinted here. Spellbook with the Master just in the tins, and High Priestess being reprinted right around the corner, the beginning of next format, in the Battle Pack 2, Round 2. So, Spellbook of Fate is definitely the most broken card. You can banish things without targeting, as well as it has additional effects. And so that being at 1 is going to hamper it. At the same time, you have High Priestess to banish it from your graveyard, and then Spellbook of Eternity to bring it back to your hand and reuse it. So, I mean, they're still going to abuse this card, but it's going to be a little bit harder. They'll have to work a little harder for it. Sacred Sword of 7 Stars. This is just the first way that Konami murdered elemental dragons for next format. And I'm definitely thankful that they are gone. But and at the same time, they still might be a valid deck, or a valid archetype to tech as an underlying archetype, or an underlying engine in a deck. because you still have one of each of the big dragons, which we'll get to in a minute, and you do have one Sacred Sword of 7 stars, so it does give you some search power as well as draw power, but it's not going to be the main engine anymore, which is definitely good. Because that was just a deck that was too fast to really keep up with, and it had 2 formats, and so now it's gone. Or so the hope is. Next up, Final Countdown. Konami doesn't like its alternate win strategies, and so, to me, it's, in a way, I'm surprised it took this long for it to get limited. You'd only have 1 Gold Sark to search it out, and it's a card that if you really can't pull it off within the first turn or two, you aren't going to win. And so, with Final Countdown being at 1, and only having 1 Gold Sark, that should kill Final Countdown decks, which I know will make a lot of people happy. So they won't have to worry about facing that and as the random trash at tournaments. Next up, Divine Wind of Mist Valley. So this is the Mist Valley field spell that Harpy Synchro was abusing. That deck was a lot of fun to play, and it was definitely going to be overpowered going to next format. And so I really don't... I'm not arguing with Konami about limiting that. I think having Mist Valley at 1 will kill the Harpy Synchro variant. At least in my personal opinion, I won't be running that with only 1 Mist Valley. Because as it was, I was running 3 Mist Valley and 2 Terraforming by the end of it, just to try and make sure you had that so you could go off with your plays. But that deck was really overpowered. And I still think that Harpy XYZs will be a very strong deck next format. We could easily see that being going into Tier 1. But, yeah, I mean, it's understandable that they would kill the Synchro variant, because that was really crazy, with as much as you could plus with that and Dancer. And so I'm glad they didn't hit Harpies really in any other way. Next, moving up to the newly limited monsters. So first up, we have the 4 big dragons. You have Tidal, Tempest, Redox, and Blaster. And so to me, those needed to be hit. I mean, again, Elemental Dragons had 2 formats. With still having 1 of each of the big dragons and 1 7-star sword, I still think you can probably take and make the Elemental Dragons, the big dragons I should say, as an underlying engine in a deck. Because, I mean, those on their own give you, a lot of power in a deck. They give you searchability, draw power, and everything there. And so, I mean, I definitely see them being techable that way, but I'm glad that they're no longer a main engine. Next up, we have Debris Dragon at 1. This hurts plants, as well as it was one of the other cards that they hit because of Elemental Dragons. So, I mean, that'll hurt plants a little bit, but I think Lone Fire at 2 will probably help them more than they were hurt by having 1 Debris Dragon. Next up, Magician of Faith. So we were talking about this before. This is now back at 1, and I mean, I think it's about time that it is. Because, again, it's a flip effect. I mean, it really, I don't think will break the game. I mean, being able to get back potentially a Dark Hole or something at a crucial moment could be very beneficial, but since it is a flip effect, I don't see very many people teching this in, except for maybe Spellbooks, as an additional way to try and reuse Spellbook of Fate. So, I mean, with that, I definitely see Spellbooks trying it out, but I think they will be the ones who utilize this most, and I really don't think that'll break the game. Next up, going on to the newly banned cards. There are a few of those. No banned monsters, no extra deck monsters. There's 1 spell, Dragon Ravine. So Dragon Ravine was again another card that Elemental Dragons were abusing, and so with that, I'm sad to see that this one was hit, because this does make Drake Unities practically invalid for next format, and probably a ways into the future. Because Dragon Ravine really is what was holding Drake Unities together, and so with that, that won't be a viable deck this format. But I mean, it did need to be hit just because dragons, or Elemental Dragons, were abusing it so much. And then into the traps, Return from a Different Dimension. Like this one, it was stupid. It really needed to be banned anyways. I mean, just the fact that it didn't have a set life point cost was really what was making it so broken. Because I mean, you could activate this at the end of the game with 100 life points left and use it to push 4 game. I mean, that plus the fact that Elemental Dragons returned to your hand during the end phase, and so then they got to choose whether they went to your hand or were banished, was just stupid. And so, I mean, to me, that was a no-brainer to get hit. Also, Sixth Sense down here. I mean, it's just one of those cards where you could take and use it, and even you could you could open up the crappiest hand into a broken hand with drawing 6 extra cards, or worst case scenario, you mill a couple. And I mean, it just, I mean, the card's been banned in Japan since, since it came out practically, and it's never come back. I mean, I sort of understand Konami's logic because they released it. There was maybe 1 or 2 regionals left where that would be, or where the card was usable, and then from there, they just essentially let us have fun with it at locals and take a lot of people off with it. And so, I mean, that really needed to be hit before next format started. And then, last but not least, self-destruct button. This was kind of a troll card to begin with that probably didn't ever need to be printed. Essentially, if there's a difference in life point cost or difference in life points, you can take and activate this, and it forces a tie. And so, I mean, if you're losing really badly, instead of taking the loss, you can go for the activate this to go for the tie. And so, I mean, if you're taking win game 1 and you can use this to tie out games 2 and 3, or even tie game 2 in time or something, I mean, then you can take and get a win off with it in a tournament at a crucial point. I mean, this card is really stupid to see people playing. And so, to be perfectly honest, I'm glad that it is now forbidden. At the same time, I mean, I don't really remember many people ever using this card, so I don't think that did a whole lot to it. But anyways, guys, that's kind of my thoughts on what might happen next format because of this, what decks were hit, what decks were helped out. And so, as always, guys, thanks for watching. Team D Plus Gaming signing out.